We are back. Today's topic will be peri-workout nutrition, or we're probably going to expand the peri-workout setup because there is so many things out there that are kind of taken out of context, not understanding that not everyone is the same. And more importantly, I think I'm not understanding that personally what I would do would not fit to someone else, even if they are the same size, just because of everything else I do in life is completely different. So what are your thoughts about peri-workout nutrition, how important it is? Where does it start? You know, does it start before workout? Does it start the day before? And anything else that you see that people are maybe taking out of context and sometimes putting too much emphasis on when they really shouldn't be focusing on those kind of things?
Yeah, I think too many people put a lot of emphasis on like the pre-workout meal. Just if you know, it's got to be this, it's got to have so many carbohydrates, it's got to have some fast-acting protein, et cetera, et cetera. But most of those people are applying that to a context that doesn't apply. For example, just one example, you might train in the afternoon and you've already had 3 meals, and now all of a sudden you're going to have fast-acting carbs and fast-acting whey protein before you train. It just doesn't make sense to me that's the priority. You know, something that would be more priority is, hey, how much water have you drank today? Are you actually properly hydrated? Do you have plenty of electrolytes in your system so that you can actually fulfill with great volition the task at hand, which is training hard, right?
Which now,
I don't care.
so, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but for example, now the most common concept is, hey, you have easily digestible food before you train, then you have a lot of amino acids, carbs, whatever, whilst you're training, then you have everything else in powder when you're finished, and then end up something with cocoa puffs or whatever, you know. So how does it actually come into someone's life when they are not even there? To me, often is a mystery. So what are your thoughts on that kind of setup, and how far it is from reality, what people would probably benefit a bit more? Or is this the best that is out there? How does it change? Does it change?
Yeah, I mean, so most people that would benefit from that type of setup that you just said are going to be people that are already really lean and already been training really hard, and there's probably some drug use involved. Like, that's just the reality. There's probably quite a bit of drug use involved, and yeah, at that point those fuel sources are like, it's not so much that they are like fast acting, like the what they're made of doesn't matter that much. It's that they can get a large volume of this right around training, which is going to be impacted by drug use. Like, that's
so
probably
before
the
you carry on,
one.
could you expand about what kind of drug use and why drug use at all with that kind of setup?
Yeah, so more than likely they're going to be already a healthy individual. In other words, they don't have diabetes or insulin resistance, and they're taking probably some anabolics and definitely you know, some growth hormone or insulin, and definitely what insulin probably more in tune with around the workout and that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, you can get away with that when you're taking insulin. Can you get away with eating a buttload of fast-acting carbs? Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the point, right? Especially if you're already a healthy individual and you don't have any insulin problems. It means your insulin sensitivity is good. Now you take some insulin, yeah, you're going to have a high demand for carbohydrates or glucose, right? So you almost by default have to eat that way because of the drugs you're taking. Normal people don't understand that. So now you start cramming a normal person that's not doing all those things with cereal pre or post workout and a whole bunch of amino acids. What is their body going to do with all? They probably can't even handle that. And now you have high blood sugar for the next 2 or 3 hours. It doesn't make sense, especially if you weren't already a very athletic, insulin sensitive person, right? You're, you know, for example, you're a guy that's 25% body fat. It's not necessarily obese, it's not necessarily lean, but it's not good, and you probably have some underlying insulin resistance at that body fat level. If you start doing peri-workout nutrition like that, you're doing more harm than good. Absolutely. So
that's something that usually blows my mind when I see people doing that, and I'm like, just because your favorite fitness model or something like that does those kind of things doesn't mean you should be doing that, because you don't understand that they are doing these things that they probably can get away with. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and eat Cocoa Pops. It's like, what's the point? I'm gonna go home and eat decent food. But
yeah, well, and that's the other thing, right? So are there circumstances, especially somebody that's large and has got really good insulin sensitivity, and you're trying to get more food in, right? Yeah, it makes sense. Hey, right after training, I'm going to have some really fast acting carbohydrates, because in 30 minutes I'm going to be hungry again anyway. You do that same application to somebody who's overweight, and that's literally the opposite of what you're trying to cause. It's literally the opposite. You're not trying to cause them to be more hungry to eat more food. Just because you gave them fast acting carbs and fast acting amino acids doesn't mean that that training session is now better. Because context matter. The environment that you introduce food and drugs into matters. It matters more than the food or the drugs. The environment takes precedent. If the environment, and when I say environment, I literally mean everything inside of you and everything outside of you. So that's what I mean by environment.
So
if your internal
environment, train in a garage, or if you train in a muscle gym, bloody in LA.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, because that all matters. So something that, if they've been listening to us, they probably already know, is that blue light raises blood sugar. So if you're going into a gym that's fluorescent lit and bright lights everywhere, and you think you need lots of carbohydrates and you're obese, you're literally wrong. I can prove it to you. You could just prick your finger before you walk into the gym outside in the sun, and then just walk into the gym 20 to 30 minutes. Don't do anything. Walk back out or stay in the gym, prick your finger again. I promise you, your blood sugar has gone up a little bit. The reason is because your body has certain chemical processes in it that can raise blood sugar through blue light stimulation. Now, so you have to take that into account. Where are you training? Are you training inside? Is it early in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Are you training outside? Do you live somewhere where you can train outside? Because those are completely different environments. You're going to be able to get away with or do certain things to optimize those better. Or make them worse if you don't know what you're doing, right? Like in that scenario, let's just give an example of what would make it worse. Let's say you're somebody that's 25% body fat, you're trying to lose some body weight, and the only time you can train is 5 a.m. in the morning, and so you're going into a Planet Fitness or whatever, and it's all brightly blue lit, and you're doing this peri-workout nutrition like you described. You're not going to see results. You're going to stall. Your body weight's not going to really go anywhere. You're probably not going to feel the best, and you're probably going to have a crash a couple hours after that training session if you're doing peri-workout nutrition like that, because you've literally done blue light stimulated blood sugar to go up. You've ate a lot more glucose in that scenario there. You've stimulated even more insulin, and now that's being raised. It's basically like you went to Thanksgiving dinner every morning that you went and trained, and now a couple hours later, you're going to feel like trash. You're going to really have a hard time staying away from food. You're going to get more cravings. So it's counterproductive to the main goal of that particular person, which should be getting in shape, losing body fat, optimizing their body to basically recomposition, build some muscle mass, lose some body fat at the same time. That particular
so how about someone saying, hey, but I can't really train properly if I don't have this intra-workout or pre or whatever. So what would you say to someone like that? So for me personally, like, that is not an issue, right? It's just mentally get the job done. But some will emotionally attach themselves to that kind of sequence of things just to be able to train. So how do you snub them out of that?
Yeah, so it depends on, kind of what you said. Is it emotional? Is it actual mental, right? So maybe they just mentally can't get the gumption to go in and train if they don't take a pre-workout or carbohydrates that raise temporarily dopamine. So in that case, then it goes, okay, well, what are you lacking? You know, is it actual dopamine manufacturing and stuff like that? Well, in that case, we can leverage a couple things, right? Depending on where you live, we can leverage cold, leverage sunlight, and we can amplify certain things before you go train. Let's just say hypothetically, we're talking about this person, you know, 25% body fat. They can only train in the morning, and they happen to live somewhere where it's cold, right? Like somewhere where there really isn't very much sun in the morning anyway, and it's not really that warm. So we would lean into that. We would be like, okay, well, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to wake up and get hydrated. Hydrated, probably something like 30 ounces of water in the first 30 to 40 minutes of waking up. That water should have plenty of electrolytes, even if it's just salt, right? Just normal sea salt in the water. Get all that fluid in you, and then either take a cold shower, or if it's cold outside, get your ass outside for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, I like to take time to go outside and drink your water there.
Yeah. That's exactly what I would say is, hey, get your water, leave it outside room temperature from the night before with the electrolytes already in it. When you wake up, you just take your big ass glass, you step outside, and you sip down your water, and just let yourself get cold. That environmental change of, hey, now we started to cool the body even more than it was before, is going to mean that when you get into the gym to work out, it's going to have a huge gradient, a huge differential from cold temperature to warm temperature, which will excite the body and brain for better work. Okay. At no point in time that I ask you to take caffeine or drink a bunch of sugar. Just that act alone of doing that. And again, this person lives in somewhere where it's cold, so they're not going to be working out outside. They're going to be going into a gym that's brightly lit with fake lights. Their ACTH from pro-melanocortin is going to be jumped up because of the blue light, which means they're going to start releasing blood sugar while they work out anyway. So then what do you do after training, right? So now that whole setup starts to look like, okay, the carbs are getting taken care of by your own body because of the environment you're going into. We set you up to be
yesterday anyway. It's you can't be
exactly.
It's not going to happen.
No, and you woke up, right? So you haven't exercised, you haven't depleted anything. And the only thing we got to make sure of is that hydration and electrolytes are on point, because you haven't been drinking any fluid, right? And then if that person does struggle, like, hey, I can't train very well on an empty stomach, then I would put in food that is highly bioavailable with healthy fats and protein. So something literally as simple as, I want you to cook up an omelet with some veggies in it, with whole eggs, right? Just something small, something light that will hold you over through the training, but is not going to jump up your blood sugar while you're going to go in and train anyway, because your blood sugar is going to go up then. Then after training, what's the goal? The goal is to recover. It's not to amplify your blood sugar more, right? The goal is to recover. So if your blood sugar already got raised from being in the gym, do you really want to raise it even more? For this particular person, the answer would be no, probably not. Does that mean no carbs? No, it means now we bias towards something like potatoes, something like whole grain pasta, something that's going to slowly keep you satisfied for another several hours. Plenty of veggies, and then I would say some steak, some literal steak or chicken thighs, something with some substance that's going to bring in lots of protein and be slowly assimilated throughout the next several hours after training. Because your body, like too many people think that, hey, if I slam down this protein shake, all this amino acids is going to start building all this muscle tissue and everything. I'm like, that takes days. So you're way better off making sure that your foods can be digested throughout the day.
My personal favorite for training will be eggs and rye bread. But you skip through intra-workout. So what about intra-workout? Where does that go away? And I just want to say quickly is that intra-workout, amino acids, carbs, and all that whatnot, it was heavily promoted by one of the greatest bodybuilding coaches, Miloš Sarcev, and he introduced a specific environment where people take a lot of assistance, medication to deal with that kind of stuff. people took it out of context and just do it whenever. So what about
Yeah.
intra-workout? Maybe some amino acids, maybe whatever else that can help you start recovering immediately, because that's what's perceived what's happening in training.
Yeah, again, if you're pharmacologically enhanced and you're kind of pushing that button, then yeah, those make more sense. For somebody that's, again, not taking drugs, kind of out of shape and wanting to get in shape, it's just water. It's just water with some electrolytes. If you absolutely need to put some flavoring in it, use some electrolytes with some flavor. And at that point, I would say, yeah, add in some amino acids that have some flavor. But at that point, you're just making expensive water, because your body is, again, in a different environmental state than somebody who can take advantage of those things. And here's something that I want to point out. Do you actually want to be the person that is taking advantage of those things? Because that's a different concept all of in itself, right? This person, if they are taking advantage of peri-workout nutrition like this, they're taking probably several injections before training, after training, and sometimes during training, right? It's a whole nother ball game at that point. Do you really want to be that person? Most of the time when I tell them, okay, well, if you want to do it that way and you want to take advantage of doing a pre-workout setup like that, you're going to need some insulin here. You're going to need something over here. You're going to need some metformin in the background. You're going to need, you see what I'm saying? You got a whole bunch of other things that are now going with that. Most people, when they finally realize that those are the things they're going to have to do, they're like, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe that's not really the lifestyle I want to lead. So again, it's all you're making the environment possible to take advantage of those things. If you're not doing that, you're actually kind of going backwards in what you're trying to do there. You should be focusing on training hard and not being injured, which revolves around proper hydration, proper electrolytes, so that you can properly stimulate muscle contractions and that sort of stuff. And then
I would
after
even
training,
push us as hard as make sure that your mindset is right as well.
Yeah. So then that goes, that almost goes hand in hand to where, hey, if you're going out in the morning to train, some cold exposure beforehand is already going to bring some mental fortitude. It's going to raise dopamine. It's going to raise noradrenaline that then can be cleaved and turned into adrenaline when you do a heavy set of anything. So your mental drive is already improved by setting it up slightly differently than somebody else who's taking, some drugs and some peri-workouts, lots of caffeine and stuff like that. It's just not really something that I find that valuable for normal people. I'd rather change their mindset through their daily habits that are always involved with their training. And, if somebody has the means and the money and the ability to do so, there is an optimal time to train. There is an optimal time to train, and there is an optimal environment that you can naturally set yourself up for so that your training goes very good and you're getting a lot out of it. And that goes in part of taking advantage of sunlight, sunlight or cold exposure, depending on where you live. But I mentioned, if you have the means, right? If you have the means, you can do something like what I'm going to do. You have a place where you move to, that you live at, that's a lower latitude, right? I'm going to be potentially moving to El Salvador for one of these reasons, which is I want to be able to have high quantum yield of sunlight every single day, no matter the time, so that I can set up my training to be middle of the afternoon, somewhere between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. And I'm going to train outside. That particular setup is going to set me up with a lot of UV light right before the training session. So a lot of UVB and UVA. What's that going to do? That's going to raise my blood sugar naturally, right? Just like the blue light from the gym, but I'm going to do it before I train. So that's my pre-workout right there, is making sure that I get outside in the sun for 30, 40 minutes before I start training. Then into the afternoon, more red light will appear. What is that going to do? Everybody kind of knows that red light therapy boxes are popular with like muscle recovery and that sort of stuff. Well, the most free version of that, and more importantly, the most intense version of red light therapy is the sun, especially when you start going closer to the equator. So I'm intentionally training out in the sun at that time of day so that my muscles, tendons, and ligaments are literally getting red light therapy while I train. So my recovery from my training is already started the moment I do my first set. So when I get done training, my recovery is already moving. It's already cascading down that pathway because of that particular setup.
Yeah, so it's
Then another
properties and stuff like that, whereas you can actually
exactly,
get more from too much sugar.
Yeah, 100% right. So now, if I wanted to set up a peri-workout nutrition around that environment, I have high sunlight that I get into right before training. I train outside, and then after that, I want to recover. My peri-workout nutrition around that is going to be, hey, my blood sugar is already going to be raising around noon. So what am I going to eat around noon? I'm going to eat a really high protein source with very low fat. Something like chicken breast, right? I'm gonna eat some chicken breast, some sauces on it, make it taste yummy, get some endorphins going on while I do it outside if possible. But if not, just eat it, then get outside for 20 minutes or so, start warming up, right? Then start my training session. After my training session, because of all the anti-inflammatory properties and the red light therapy that I'm going to be getting from the sun, now I can start the full-on recovery process right after. So that's when I'm going to have my biggest bolus of meat for the day, right? Like a whole bunch of amino acids for the day, and fatty. I'll make it fatty sources because I want to sustain that release into the night and through sleep, right? Because I'm training at mid-afternoon, 3 p.m. So that's where the biggest bolus of meat and high fats are going to come in. And I'm probably going to, if I need the calories, right, I'm going to that's where I'm going to put my carbohydrates, because I just trained. I can fill up those muscles with carbohydrates. Before the training, I don't need carbohydrates because I'm going to be getting out in the sun to raise my blood sugar anyway from noon sun. And then on other days of the week, I'm going to implement let's put it this way. The reason why I'm moving to El Salvador is for this one simple thing. Man cannot replicate sunlight, period. I don't care what anybody tells you. They will never be able to make a light that replicates sunlight. So I'm going to the sunlight. But guess what man can do? They can replicate cold. So what am I going to do while I'm in Salvador? I'm going to freaking buy a gigantic commercial freezer that I can train in to get cold therapy for any of my recovery sessions and any of my neurological amplification sessions. Man can replicate cold. They can do it really damn good. So that's why I'm biasing towards what can't I get synthetically? Sunlight. So I'm moving to the sunlight. What can I bring that's going to be an environmental factor that amplifies all these things that I can purchase? A big ass freezer. So I'm going to buy a big ass freezer there, or find one, right? Maybe there's one at a commercial place there that they'll let me put some weights in or whatever. And it wouldn't even require very much weights. Neurological drive and stuff like that can be done through plyometrics and other things, right? So that's kind of going to be my setup. But I'm always going to train at the same time of day, mid-afternoon. Why? Because the other concept to this that nobody's really talking about with their peri-workout nutrition is, what about the other 24 or 20, 23, 22 hours of the day when you're supposed to be recovering from that training session? How do you optimize that? That goes back to some of our first principles that we've been talking about from way early in the series, is get outside in that morning light. Right. So in El Salvador, or anywhere for that matter, below the 20th latitude, you're going to have really strong UVA and infrared A light every single morning. Those are literally the two wavelengths that interact with your mitochondria directly to amplify pretty much every single thing that you can conceptualize that your body does in regards to hormones and neurotransmitters and recovery. So living in El Salvador, because the weather is nice all the time, I can literally conduct my work in the morning, just like any other executive, but I can do it outside. I can do it in a cabana, right? So I can still work on my computer, but I'm getting daylight every single morning. So
when
I'm
you
setting
talk
up
about this, This sounds great for someone who is working afternoon and whatnot. So would it be really good for somebody who trains, let's say at 5 o'clock in the morning, to do nothing heavy before training, get through the training session, stay hydrated, get high quality and low digesting carbs and protein after training, and then midday get outside for light walk?
Yeah. So I would say you would at least want to get at least one of two things in the morning, either before training at 5 a.m. or after training. And that would be cold exposure. I would probably put it in twice, one before, one after. 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long.
And
All we
expand
want
on
is
cold
skin.
exposure, because somebody will think 10 minutes lying in ice bath.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it that way, but I wouldn't go 10 minutes if you're going to do an ice bath. All we want is the skin temperature to get down below 60 degrees. In an ice bath, that literally is going to take 3 minutes. It's very short, right? When I say 10 minutes is because I don't particularly like the effort of filling up the tub, putting ice in it,
Yeah, so
and
what
then
you are
cleaning it up
talking
every
about
day.
is just go outside.
Go
That's going
outside.
to
If
be
the
your cold
temperature is
exposure.
50 degrees, yeah, right. Because at 5 a.m., it's going to be colder than normal anyway, right?
Yeah.
So 10 minutes outside and the temperature is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's generous. Most of the time, it's going to be lower than that. Your body's going to cool down. The skin temperature is going to cool down to that outside temperature in about 10 minutes. So why not just take advantage of that for free? And at that same time, in those 10 minutes, if you're outside, why don't you go a walk around the block, right? You're going to facilitate more nutrient partitioning. You're going to basically undo all the things if you're somebody who sits at a computer all the time, right? So you're getting lots of benefits from just going outside, even if it's at 5 in the morning before you go train. After you go train, this is one of the things I do for one of the guys, that especially if you have issues with insulin resistance, right? You have some potential of dysregulation with insulin handling. Walking is going to partition that. Being outside in the cold is going to amplify that, especially if you have some northern descent mitochondria that can uncouple. What that means is any extra energy can be turned into heat, especially if you do it while moving. So cold plus movement equals a win-win if you already have some metabolism issues going on. So for somebody who trains that early in the morning, the biggest ritual around training would be hydration and outside exposure, and potentially compounding that outside exposure with some walking. Very light. I'm not talking about sweating. I'm just talking about go for a leisurely walk. It's going to do two things. It's going to help you unwind and think more clearly about your other parts of the day, right? Because you're not going to be thinking about training realistically, other than for the 20 minutes before you go train and the 20 minutes after you train. The rest of the day, you're going to be thinking about kicking ass and taking names in your business or your work. So the walk before preps you for the training. The walk after preps you for the rest of the day. It literally lets you gather your thoughts of, hey, these are the things I got to do today. Oh, you know what? I should call this person. While you're walking and thinking and doing some cold exposure, you're going to do some of your best thinking for the other stuff that you want to do. So then hopefully, if you trained at 5 a.m., maybe after your training that you did some cold exposure and did some walking, it was hopefully like 7:30. The sun is rising at that point. That stimulation of sunlight, infrared A, UVA light, hitting your skin and eyes at that point in time, that's really what you want to take advantage of daily to set your circadian rhythm up, so that your pancreas and your liver, which are handling all these nutritional things, know and can coordinate, right? Because think of it like working at a warehouse or any other thing like that. Things got to be coordinated. There's lots of things going on, and arrivals got to come at this time and departures got to come at this time. Your body's doing that live. Your pancreas is talking to your liver, your pancreas, and your lungs are talking together to your cardiovascular system. And all of that's being coordinated up here with your brain. Your brain and your nervous system needs to know timing, precision, right? The more precise your clock is right here, the better your body can handle all these things. And the thing that makes the precise timing is sunlight. So I would say not before noon. You want to get that daylight out or daylight viewing done. And it only takes 15, 30 minutes, sometime before 10 a.m. So even if you work out at 5 a.m., do some cold exposure and stuff like that. Say the sun, you get done with your training and you're at work before the sun's even come up. Take a 9 o'clock break. Take a 9 o'clock break. Go outside, drink some water, drink some coffee, whatever you're going to do. Spend 10, 15 minutes outside around 9 a.m. That by far is going to optimize as much as possible without moving that structure. Now, if you have the means and the money, you can go as far as like what I'm going to be doing, which is redoing exactly when I train, and not just when I train, but where I train on the planet, and some other equipment things that I'm going to be doing. And again, that's the goal. It's I would say maybe 2 to 3 months out, but that's the goal. That's where I'm venturing because of all these things that I know about circadian rhythm, how sunlight interacts with you, how that ties into your frontal lobes, how you think, and how you can excite the nervous system for physical and mental activity. I just know too much about it that it's not worth not taking advantage of.
And I think emphasis needs to put on that. What you're trying to do is, be the strongest on a planet at your weight class, but you're actually trying to optimize your health. The healthier you are, the stronger you can become, and the quicker you can recover and whatnot. So these things that you are talking about, what you will be doing, can be literally taken out and put into someone's daily routine just to get them extremely healthy, not necessarily the strongest on human being on planet.
No, you're 100% right, because I don't care who you are. If you are not healthy, your performance is short-lived and dies like that. Because if you don't cultivate health, you cannot trade it for performance, mental or physical, right? Like even if you weren't interested at all in physicalness, but you wanted to be healthy, but your job involves a lot of mental drive, well, guess what? You will get poorer and poorer mental drive and capabilities, cognitive capabilities, the longer you circumvent some of the things that I talked about: cold exposure, sunlight exposure at the proper times of day. So yes, that is all health related. In fact, that is the base of why I'm doing it, so I can be as healthy as possible, so I can trade some of that health for really high performance.
So now I would like you to kind of get deeper into post-workout window, post-workout nutrition, environment, and whatnot. For somebody who is probably similar to us, who is not interested just in training and getting jacked and whatnot, but we really highly value mental clarity, because we want to learn every single day something new and delivers that knowledge back to other people. So somebody who is doing similar stuff or runs their business, they always need to have clear mind and whatnot. They can't afford to gulp on a lot of carbs after training just to feel lethargic for the rest of the day. So what would be the better strategy for that and still try to improve their physiology in terms of aesthetics and performance?
Yeah. So one of the things is a more precise version of cold exposure. And what I mean by that is, I'll just tell you the protocol. You would take some ice, put it in your mouth, and dunk your face, preferably your whole head, but at least your face, in cold water after training, after you've ate your first meal after training. And that meal would be structured similar to what we said before. Not a whole lot of carbohydrates, because we don't want that lag of drop of mental clarity. And then what we would do is we would cool the brain from the inside with the ice in your mouth, and the outside on the face. And if you could do the whole head, and they even sell caps. They sell caps that you can put in the freezer. So you wouldn't even have to use the cold water. They go on your head. People think those are weird. I'm like, those are freaking fantastic, because what you're doing is you're amplifying the mitochondrial's electron transport chain in a specific area of your body, in your brain. You're literally facilitating better electrical conductivity in your brain. So now you can literally use that repetitively once every hour after training to alleviate any brain fog and really boost mental performance. I'm telling you, people are missing the boat when it comes to manipulating their environment. We're the smartest species on the planet, and the things we're concentrating is the shit we put in our mouth, when the things we should be concentrating on is how do specific environments influence our biology? Environment meaning temperature and light, because those have impacted all in evolution on this planet. Literally, the reason we exist is because of the changes in environment that have happened over historical time. And that changes are all temperature and light related and some oxygen related stuff. So those are the three things that we should actually be concentrating on. The food is just food until it gets put in the right environment, just like we've discussed before. So if you could eat the same as somebody else and get a completely different response because of the environment you're introducing it to. So that is actually a strategy that I do use with some people that get a lot of mental downturn after their training. Even if we reduce their carbs, they're still like, yeah, I just kind of have some brain fog that just never leaves me. I started having them do, I had them buy a cap, and they're like, I put this on and I feel great. I feel really damn good for like 30, 40, 50 minutes after that. And I'm like, okay, we'll put it on again after that. And they're like, yeah, after 2 times, I feel completely normal. It doesn't even feel like I train, I have that brain fog. And it has to do with neurological drive. These people have learned to train so damn hard that now acetylcholine has been depleted temporarily, right? And food is going to be only, you know, a lagging refill for that. So coupling, so this is for a completely natural person, which is just the ice in the mouth with a cold cap or cold water. But if you're semi-enhanced or are willing to take something, you can amplify that effect with some injectable L-carnitine and some injectable choline. The choline will refill your acetylcholine stores at the nervous system level, and the L-carnitine will start facilitating a little bit more fat oxidation for electron transport chain. So you're amplifying electrical components manually because you're adding substrates that do that. And you're going to amplify electrical components specifically in the brain with the cold, because you're going to squeeze down the mitochondrial complexes, complex 1 through 4. So again, we're manipulating the engine. The engine is what makes everything work correctly. And our engine, everybody thinks that maybe it's your lungs or your heart. It's not. It's your mitochondria, and we have trillions of them, right? We have tiny engines that make up a large energy source for us. And we're manipulating those engines acutely, and we can do it at certain parts of the body. We can do it in your brain. We can do it in our heart. Heart surgeons do exactly that. They will cool and pack your internals so that they can facilitate and preserve energy in that tissue. Brain surgeons do it in your brain. When they cut you open, they literally freeze your brain for these reasons. So now you just got to think out of the box a little bit.
So when we go into actual peri-workout nutrition and peri-workout, maybe strategies and whatnot, what seems to be is more important than what you actually eat is what you do. And it will slightly differ from the time of the day you do. And I think later in the day, it does not really matter as much, and you can kind of have a lot of carbs after training and whatnot. Because it's not going to get,
as long as the environment allows it. If the afternoon training session happens in a gym, then it is still similar to what happens in the morning.
Yeah. So we are overemphasizing things that are probably not applicable to 99% of people, because we are buying into this social media push. Hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Not understanding that it's been promoted by people who do completely different things to their body, and that's why they can get away with it, whereas majority of us just couldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, as
both
usual,
from
thanks for your time, because we can expand on this for hours and hours and hours. But I think it's a good takeaway for people. Hey, just focus on environment first, and then food will be.